Peter Mullins, welcome to another edition of Fora. Very excited to have you here and very excited to be joined by Kim Kitchings, who's the SVP for Consumer Marketing at Cotton Incorporated. Kim, really glad to have you here on Fora.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Peter. It's good to see you again.
Yes, absolutely. It's great to see you too. So I was hoping maybe you could give me a bit of background first, maybe on Cotton Inc. And then after that, I'd love to hear a bit of your story and your story in marketing.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. So Cotton Incorporated, some of you may or may not know us as the fabric of our lives or the seal of cotton. There's one behind me up there that you'll see on apparel and towels. But the company itself is a nonprofit organization, and we do everything from dirt to shirt for cotton. And our objective, our mission in life is to improve the demand for and profitability of cotton. We're funded two ways, Peter. We're funded through U.S. cotton growers, about 50% of our funds, and then 50% come from brands and retailers that use non-U.S. cotton. So think about someone like potentially Under Armour or other large brands and retailers, The Gap, also pay into our program. So when cotton prices are high, the producers are happy, and maybe the brands and retailers are not.
Right.
So it's an interesting board to have, a wonderful board. But we do everything, as I mentioned, from dirt to shirt. So our company, which is headquartered here in North Carolina, located off Weston Parkway, for those of you that are local may know us. We have a facility about 120,000 square feet, so not huge, but nice size, that you can go through and you can find raw cotton in it, and testing and laboratories to understand the qualities and properties of cotton. We have an agricultural and research department that looks at genetic research, ensuring that we're using less pesticides or other type of applications to cotton to help it grow better than we were in the future for a sustainable future. We do product developments with cotton, so blending cotton with different fabrics. It could be cashmere, could be polyester, trying to make fabrics people want to wick away moisture, to retain heat when needed, depending on what you're doing. We have marketing to the supply chain, which is global, as you can imagine, because a lot of our production is not here. It's other places in the world, such as China and India and Europe. And then what I do, which is in the consumer marketing area, and that's ensure that we have demand and that cotton is at the forefront of what consumers think about when they think about apparel and home fabrics and other goods that cotton are in.
That's great. Well, maybe you can tell me a bit about like how you got into cotton or into I guess into the industry. I mean, what drew you to it?
Sure. Well, I started really my career in analytics, Peter. I was with a small market research company locally, and literally fell into it. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but it's been about 27 years I've been with this company. So I started literally while I was in graduate school and came through, and it was an analytical position at that time that I took. It's a group called the Lifestyle Monitor Data that we had that was just US, and now we do it in about 12 different countries. And had the opportunity to see what consumers desired, what they wanted. And then we wanted to take that information out and take it around to brands and retailers that were making decisions and why they should choose cotton over other fibers, and putting it in the supply chain. And then of course, all the way through to the consumer. And as the years passed, you go in different paths in a company, and I was able to do a lot of different things, from innovation to continuing with research all along to corporate strategy, and ultimately landed in this consumer marketing position where I had done trackers over time and worked with this division. So it's been a journey, and it's been one where I've been very fortunate that the company has allowed me to grow and learn.
That's great. Now, marketers these days, definitely think of themselves as being data driven, but I think your career proves the point that data's always been an important part of marketing. How do you think it's changed over time, data's role in marketing since when you were entering in as director of analytics?
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting question, because I think when I first came here, when you're doing attitudinal data and things, that was helpful. That was adding value. But if you were doing trackers or assessing programs, I think people would see you as someone that was coming in as a thumbs up or thumbs down person, right? That it passed or failed. And I always tried to reposition it and say, that's not what this is. This is information for you to help make decisions and to evolve a program. Sometimes that could mean ending it, but it could mean growing it and going in a different way. So data wasn't the enemy, hopefully, and certainly the people in my division, we didn't want to be the enemy, but to come in and to find ways to use it to make it more profitable for all of us.
Got it. And so now these days though, how do you see the analytics playing a role in your prioritization? You know, how you think about the strategy for consumer marketing?
Well, there's no doubt that's where I start,
Yeah.
maybe for the betterment of some and not the others when we go and look, but trying to understand what the needs are, the objectives, and where the opportunity is, as I mentioned, to grow cotton, not literally, but to grow cotton demand, and where we need to go and what consumer segments that is, looking at opportunities. And it's not just on the front end, but it's also on the back end on the measurement of programs, because that didn't always exist when you were just working on TV and other things. You had some reach, but as the digital world has grown, the metrics there have improved significantly. You know, there's still some that don't quite have what we need to be able to play in the space and to be able to evaluate our programs, but we really use it on both sides to help us understand. As a nonprofit, it's not unlimited funds. So
Right.
you want to make certain you're doing the best you can with the dollars you have, and these efficiencies help. And you know, you have marketing attribution models now, other things that you can really look at all of the different tactics you have and put it together.
Great. Now that data, you know, as you mentioned, you're clearly using it for yourself, for the consumer marketing. Is that something that you also share with producers as well, or other members of Cotton Incorporated?
Yeah, sure. I guess I should take you back for a moment. So in my division now, we have four areas. We have CSI of Carrie, that's corporate strategy and insights.
Okay.
Then we also have advertising, we have corporate communications, PR activities, and brand partnerships.
Right.
So the CSI group, significantly, that's where I came from. They're the ones that really take the information out for internal strategies with other divisions, understanding new markets, innovation, global consumer attitudes, but they also give presentations. And during COVID, we were able to reach more than 20,000 people in the supply chain with
Mm,
presentations. And again, we've got offices around the world, not
right.
just here in Cary. So to take that information, when you start taking it to China and to brands, retailers, mills, manufacturers, to share that with them. With the producer side, we do share the information too, but we're sharing it because they're our board and helping them understand what are we doing and how does it work. But active decision making is in the supply chain.
Mm,
And then sometimes also with the media and making certain that cotton is positioned correctly and also correcting any mistruths out there that may occur. There are a few of those
right.
that happen, and trying to get correct information.
Okay. Great. Now, so always interested in an approach when you have an analytics team, the degree to which they're able to get more business context. So is there an approach that you have so that they're not just, you know, number crunchers that are thinking about data, but rather people that are business people that are thinking about the business challenges and understanding, you know, what questions to ask? Do you have an approach to make sure that happens?
Yeah, you know, that's the hardest part of this too, because I don't want to say anyone, but a lot of people can collect data.
Yeah.
And when I was hired here so many years ago, I remember the initial interview, I said, look, I want to do research, but if it's going to sit on my shelf, I'm not your person. I
Right.
want someone that gets out. So our people get out in the market with the account management team, with the brands and retailers. Before COVID, we do international trips. We do them, of course, domestically too. And we talk to the brands and we ask them what their questions are. And I'm very specific when setting up those meetings that I don't just want a dog and pony show, which means we come in, we present, and we leave.
Yeah.
You know, I want questions, and I want the opportunity for those people to even go to a lunch or a dinner, have coffee, to talk about what are their business issues and challenges. We ask the account managers to talk with their clients about that as well, because if we're coming in to utilize this vast research that we have, that many of the brands and retailers, they don't have time to do. They're sourcing around the world, they're creating products, putting them in the market. They're not doing this type of intelligence. So if we can do that, then we want to help them solve their problems, specifically related to cotton. Sometimes I get
Right.
other questions. You know, I have to remind them that's not my job,
Yeah.
but to come in and to explain that. So it's really getting in there with your customer, whether it's internal or external, finding out what they're trying to do, just like you're doing with me today.
Right.
How do you do that? And you ask those questions, and then we don't necessarily set the research up to answer others' questions. Sometimes we do, but we go and we have a lot of it that can help look at it differently.
Right. So that's from a data from a mining for what kinds of data that you want to get out. When you're thinking about like priorities for yourself and how to market to consumers, how do you set those priorities? You know, I guess maybe first off, I'd be interested in the angle of your members, like how they influence um, your strategies. Do you have like focus groups? Or how do you solicit the opinions of your members, or is it or do you go the other way? I mean, I'm curious, when you have such a diverse base of stakeholders, it must be interesting to be able to pull together what are your priorities.
Sure, and it changes depending on who you talk to in the company. I'll sound like an economist. It depends.
Right.
So, for example, if you're in the agricultural area, our PhDs over there are talking to the producers about their needs and how to reduce the use of the applications or to increase their profitability on the farm or different genetics. Right. So you go out and you do surveys of the producers and talk to them. If you get further down into product development areas, you're talking to the mills and manufacturers about any issues they're having spinning cotton, weaving cotton, some of the technicalities, or even running technologies we've created at Cotton Incorporated through a variety of research that we do there to applicate on garment form or yarn form or fabric form. There's a lot of things we could talk about, Peter.
Right. Right.
And then you get to what I do, and that's the consumer section, and trying to understand, well, where is the opportunity to grow preference and demand for cotton? And, it's a difficult question sometimes, because when you ask consumers, what do you think of when you think of apparel? What fiber? Cotton's number one by far. And there's no doubt that that has to do with work we have done for years at this company, well before my time. And this role, cotton's the fabric for our lives, TV commercials, and we're the only fiber that really does that. So then you start looking at segments, as we talked about earlier. Who actively searches for cotton? Who checks the label? What are they buying? We've done audits. We go in consumers' homes. And we literally open their closets, and we've done this for years, and look at what they own, because they may tell us something is cotton, but we really want to look at the label to ensure that it is, and that they know, because now the touch, the feel of cotton, a lot of things feel like cotton. So there's research like that sets up. Some of our priorities right now fall into different messaging pillars and what we use. But one market we're looking heavily at is the youth market, and looking at what's happening there as far as their awareness of fibers is very different today. And this will show our age, Peter, but generations ago, it was a very different setup in the home and how you took care of apparel and what you talked about, and even the options you had to buy apparel and the fibers, they weren't as plentiful as they are today. And when you've got improvements in fabric care from ones like P&G and others, and there are, how does that affect cotton and other fibers? So we have to understand, well, is there an issue for consumers at all in the youth market? And where does cotton, or denim is cotton, where does that fit in their lives? And I've got data that show me that there's opportunity there. They don't check the labels like older generations. And some of that is just with time as you buy your own and spend your money. But also, why does it matter? And this generation cares more about issues such as sustainability. They care about fit, look, and that's always still first. And this generation, like everyone before it, price.
Right.
So when you start to talk to them, I think you have to kind of ladder those up and understand, where does cotton fit in and where is it relevant?
Right. So it sounds like the new pillar in the messaging that hadn't been there before, or at least hadn't been so prominent, is around that sustainability. So how if that's the case, then maybe how have you been thinking about building out that story around sustainability?
Sure, and it's interesting because there's a couple of things here. When you're asking about my constituencies, the producers have been about sustainability their entire lives. They live on the land for generations.
Right.
They love sustainability. They wouldn't live there if it was harmful. Right. So they've known and done this, but now the retailers and the brands and the consumers are just coming into this area and understanding the importance of water use, of recycling, of doing all the things right to keep microplastics out of the oceans. Well, how do you do that? So it's a fun time to be here, an interesting time, but it's also a difficult time, because when you talk to consumers, what they know about when it comes to sustainability, and I'm talking mass consumers, there's definitely a niche that knows significantly more, those that shop at Patagonia, other places like that. But for the mass consumer, they know about recycling. You ask them what type of activities they do, they'll talk, well, I recycle my cans. I turn the water off when I brush my teeth, things like that. So it's not, especially with apparel, it's not at the top of their mind. And when you ask them why they buy it, that doesn't get them to buy it, but they do think the supply chain brands and retailers should be doing the right thing. So it's understanding what those messages are. So some of the things we've been doing, and they're not all new. One, and the first and foremost in sustainability area, back in 2006, we started a program called Blue Jeans Go Green. And this is where you collect denim from consumers across the US and you turn it into insulation. And it has
Oh,
historically gone into homes like Habitat for Humanity. It goes in now into food boxes, if you think of Freshly and others that are using it, pet beds, things of that nature. So brands and retailers, we've had more than 200 partners over the years. And then people like National Geographic has been involved. In fact, there was a Guinness Book World Record collecting the most denim jeans among the youth category.
no fun.
So a lot of fun things to do, but it also gives a retailer and brand a way to keep items out of the landfill.
Right.
And in fairness, to give many times they'll give a discount for buying a new cotton item, new cotton jeans or shirt, denim again, and looking at that. So there's a story to start to tell. So as we've grown this program over the years, we've taken it to college campuses, more than 90 in the US, and we start to tell them other messages about cotton, why cotton is good, what you should do, how it biodegrades faster than other fibers. And we really work that in a way, but it's the relevancy, Peter, that matters at the end of the day. If the consumer isn't getting it, if it doesn't hit them where they belong, then it doesn't stick.
Right.
So stickiness is an issue for us when we start talking about this. So we've had to kind of go at a slower rate than
Right.
we would like to, because again, they care about fit and style, and some of these others matter. So we're looking at a lot of opportunities now, and it's grown into podcasts that have done really well on a group called Mind Body Green. It's a website. And again, people that are there, sometimes you are preaching to the choir. You're
Right.
talking to them because they care about sustainability. But we had about 60,000 downloads with our chief sustainability officer when we had him talking about what matters. So that was a different way to reach the consumer. So we look for different messages, and we just completed a global sustainability study. And I was reviewing it before we got on this call
Okay.
to see what's going on. And we talked to people again in China and India and Europe. And as you can imagine, some of those attitudes are very different depending on where they're from.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, those programs sound terrific, and it's also terrific to hear that point that you made about the producers always having cared about sustainability. That's a great point. Now, if we kind of move now from the messaging into vehicles for the messaging. So you mentioned podcasts as one route for that sustainability message. When you're thinking about this like mass consumers, that's a broad category. So now, how do you start to think about slicing up the vehicles to reach out to this mass market? You know, it used in my mind, I'm always thinking about, you know, like the difference between TV and internet, and being able to just really focus messaging. But with a mass market, how do you slice and dice that so that you're able to reach the breadth of your audience, but still, you know, fine tune those messaging?
Sure. Well, one of the things I do with my teams is we talk about the consumer journey, awareness, engagement, and action. And awareness, the biggest play, believe it or not, is still video content and television. And now there's digital, there's streaming, there's a lot of different versions of that now. But I would put all that into video content versus just TV. So we still do that, and we do that with very broad messaging. So you start with a macro, and then you start to get much more focused into a micro. So for example, we've got a campaign now that's going on. It's about the comfort of cotton. It runs on TV. And for example, some of the shows we were on last year were Masked Singer, Grey's Anatomy, which has been around forever. And so 90 Day Fiance, that's a newer one too. And we're talking to them about the fashionability and the comfort of cotton. And we even have one that's got a dad and a daughter in there, and it's a little play on sustainability and durability. And then we take that messaging into digital with digital ads. We look at partners, a variety of partners that we use to do geo-targeting, to look at BuzzFeed even. I mentioned Mind Body Green and podcast, and then some other awareness like who, what, where, things like that too, that you use depending on if it's a fashion message or others to really hit that area. Our three pillars right now are health and wellness, sustainability, and looking at benefit messaging. So why cotton is it durable, stain resistant, things of that nature, and then where to get the information. So it's not one source at all that we're utilizing. We're looking at all of these and then trying to understand, you know, where are we getting the change? Where does it make people want to search more and engage and go to our websites like the Fabric for Our Lives and learn more about cotton, where we have a sustainability page now. And if they go there and they want to know more, it takes them to Cotton Today, which is a different website that goes significantly deeper into issues, agricultural issues, things of that nature. And then of course the Blue Jeans Go Green program. So much much of it is a pathway for the consumer and where they want to go.
Right. So now when you're thinking about that pathway in terms of like attribution, how do you think about attribution since like since you're not the seller of the actual clothing itself. So what does an attribution model look like for you?
Yeah, that's been it's a piece of art. People think about analytics and attribution models as science. Unfortunately, that's not the case when you're a nonprofit.
Mhm.
And when I talk about our sales, they are in bales of cotton, literally
Okay.
500 pounds, bales of
Right.
cotton, and how we measure success. So we have other data sources, again, that tell us market share. There's import data from the USDA. There are data that we collect about different shares by literally fiber content levels. It gets very detailed that we can then put into a model that helps us. It's a Bayesian-based model with a group we work out of, and we look at, what does that do and how does that contribute to check the label is another proxy we use. We have found that as people increase checking the label, they buy more cotton and they care more about it. And so that's a proxy for us when we can't always get to the actual share because we don't own the data.
Right.
However, we do have, I mentioned, a brand partnerships team. And that team, we go in the past 3 years, we've had programs with Amazon. And for example, last year we had one over the holiday season. And because we're working directly with an Amazon or a Revolve or a Bed Bath and Beyond, we go and we can get sales data. So our purpose in that is to curate cotton collections where people can easily find them. They have the seal of cotton on the product, so they know it's made of cotton. But when you do that, especially online, you can find out, how many people clicked on it, what happened, what messaging drove that, because you're doing digital banner ads about cotton's durability, or was it microplastics, or was it a great outfit, the fashionability of it. By Amazon, for example, we have men's, women's, children's, and home. So there's
Right.
a lot of things you can do with these retailers and brands, but I will tell you, it's not easy. It takes a lot of planning on our behalf because that's not the way retailers and brands usually look at it. But
Right.
there are ways that we look at attribution differently than companies that just have bottom line and sales, and they can do that. Which some days I wish for that, Peter. By the
Yeah,
way.
I have to say I suddenly feel like I'm being yeah, I've got it easy. I definitely have it easy when it comes to attribution. So I should count my blessings, I think. Well, we're coming up on the time. So Kim, I just want to say thank you so much. We really enjoyed this opportunity to hear more about your path and your thinking and about Cotton Incorporated. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, Peter. Thanks so much for having me.
That's great. So Kim Kitchings with Cotton Incorporated. So thanks again, and hope you enjoyed this